The sound of the police siren echoed through the wealthy neighborhood of Talatona in Luanda. It was nearly 7 p.m. Neighbors stepped out onto their balconies, confused. No one could imagine that someone would be arrested in that mansion with its tall walls and immaculate garden, especially not a woman 8 months pregnant, barefoot, trembling with fear and begging for justice. Linda, with her heavy belly, wore a simple light blue cotton dress. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, and her eyes were red from crying. She clung to the front door of the house, while 2 visibly embarrassed police officers tried to convince her to get into the patrol car. "Please, Otavio, look at me. I swear on everything. I didn't take that money. I would never do that to you." Otavio, in a dark suit, didn't even lift his eyes from his phone. He answered coldly, "You were the only one with access. The $150 are gone. I trusted you." His mother, Dona Ramina, watched the scene with her arms crossed and a faint smile on her lips. She wore a purple silk turban, gold earrings, and a traditional handmade, embroidered dress. Impeccable as always. But her eyes were filled with poison. "People born in the mud don't understand the value of things," she whispered just loud enough for Linda to hear. "Let this be a lesson." Linda was gently pushed into the car. Inside she screamed. The pain was more than physical. It was soul deep. She couldn't believe what was happening. It wasn't possible that the man she loved was allowing this. That the child she carried would enter the world while she was behind bars, treated like a thief. Before I continue the story that will touch your heart, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, we tell stories that stir your emotions, make you reflect, and show how love and pain often walk side by side. And you, where are you listening from? Leave a comment. I'd really love to know. And tell me one thing from your heart. Do you believe love can survive a betrayal like this? Linda was born in the province of Wambo, in a humble family. She grew up surrounded by sisters, clay pots over wood fires, church songs, and calloused hands. She was always beautiful. Very beautiful. Beautiful in a calm, almost shy way. Her skin was the color of jambo, smooth and soft as silk. Her dark eyes were deep, as if hiding the world's secrets. And her smile, oh, that smile. Sweet, sincere, one of those smiles that makes you stop and look twice. She always wanted to work, to help her family. At 20, she moved to Luanda and got a job as a housekeeper at a luxury beachfront resort. She was dedicated, attentive, always respectful. She knew the name of every guest, folded sheets perfectly, and treated each room like it was her own. That's where she met Otavio. He was one of the resort's investors. Young, handsome, confident. Always surrounded by important people. But one day, after forgetting a document in the presidential suite, he returned and found Linda picking wilted flowers from a vase. She smiled shyly and apologized for being there. Otavio stood still, watching. She was different. She had a natural elegance, effortless. He started a conversation. The next day, he came back just to see her. Then he offered her a ride. Then lunch. And before he knew it, he was enchanted. Everything happened fast. He said she was the most honest woman he had ever met. That her simplicity was exactly what he needed. That he didn't care about her past, or about his mother's opinion. But Dona Ramina, she never accepted Linda. From the first family dinner, Ramina made it clear she didn't approve of her daughter-in-law. She looked her up and down with a fake smile. "You learned how to use cutlery at work, right? That's good. No one is born knowing." Or she would lend her expensive clothes for parties, always too tight, as if to mock her. And then she would comment, "Too bad some things can't be bought with money. Some things you just have to be born with." Linda tried to keep the peace. She swallowed her pride, smiled, showed respect. All she wanted was a home. She wanted peace to raise her child. And she truly believed Otavio loved her. But with each passing month, he changed. He became more distant, colder. He started treating her with indifference. Until the money disappeared and everything collapsed like a sandcastle. She no longer cried out of shame. She cried from disappointment. And in that cold cell, as the contractions began earlier than expected, Linda could only think of one thing. Will my child be born seeing his mother as a criminal? At that seaside resort where everything sparkled, the glass walls of the lounges, the silver cutlery, the forced smiles of the wealthy guests, Linda was almost invisible. Quiet, punctual, flawless in her service. But even without knowing it, she had a shine of her own. Not just because of her natural beauty, but because of the care, the grace, and the peace in her eyes. Ottavio was the first to notice. At first, she thought he was just another rich man trying to have fun with the maid. But he insisted. He would show up in the hallways just to see her. One time, he pretended to lose his room key so she would be the one to assist him. He brought her small gifts, a pair of handmade earrings, an exotic fruit from the market. Never anything expensive. Just simple things. They would talk by the sea after her shift. He listened when she spoke of her childhood in Wombo, of the days washing clothes in the river, of how she missed the father who had passed too soon. Linda started to believe it was real. Ottavio seemed genuine, different from the men who had come before. He liked who she was, not what she had. When he asked her to be his girlfriend, Linda hesitated. She was afraid of his world, but he promised to protect her, that together they would build a new life. And for a few months, it was beautiful. They walked hand in hand without caring about the looks. He took her on short trips, introduced her to restaurants, taught her about wine, laughed at her mistakes, and said that her authenticity was what made him feel human again. When he took her to meet his mother, Linda dressed with care. She wore a cotton floral dress, her hair in fresh braids, and a simple necklace of red beads. Donna Ramina opened the door with a rehearsed smile. She was beautiful too, elegant, commanding, with the posture of a woman in charge. But her gaze was cold. "So, you're the one. I was expecting someone more prepared," she said, placing a dry kiss on Linda's cheek. During dinner, Ramina served Linda's plate using only a fork, never touching it with her hands. She observed every gesture as if evaluating a product on a shelf. When Linda mentioned her family back in Wombo, her mother-in-law replied, "How curious. My grandmother used to say that good women come from the north, from the south. They only come to serve." Ottavio tried to laugh to ease the tension, but Linda noticed. Ramina made sure she felt uncomfortable at every encounter. One time, when Linda was trying to learn how to use the cutlery properly, Ramina offered her an etiquette course as a gift. "Don't be offended, dear. It's just so you don't embarrass yourself at company events," she said in a sweet tone laced with poison. Another time, during a gala party, Ramina offered Linda a dress she had chosen herself. It was beautiful, but deliberately 2 sizes too small. When Linda showed up wearing it, visibly uncomfortable, Ramina whispered in her ear, "If you want to keep a man like Ottavio, you'll have to learn how to fit in, even if it means being squeezed." Even with all that, Linda tried. She wanted to be accepted. She told herself it was just motherly jealousy, that it would pass with time. Soon after, Ottavio proposed. It was a discreet but elegant event. Linda looked stunning. She wore a white African lace dress with embroidery made by an aunt from the countryside. The ceremony was small, just for close friends and family. Ramina was there, of course, but she didn't even help her get ready. She spent the whole time next to her son, taking pictures as if she were the bride. Linda began to realize that everything would be a silent war. But she was in love, and she truly believed that Ottavio's love would be enough. Shortly after the wedding came the nausea, the sickness, the fatigue. The pregnancy was confirmed on a Saturday morning. Linda cried with joy. Ottavio seemed happy, at least at that moment. When his mother found out, all she said was, "A baby? Already? I just hope it at least gets its father's brains." From that moment on, everything began to change slowly, like a crack spreading across a wall. Ottavio started coming home later. He became less patient. He said she was too sensitive, that everything was just pregnancy drama. Ramina called every day to ask if the house was clean, if the food was how he liked it, if Linda was taking good care of her boy. Linda, more and more alone, tried to stay strong. She started hand-stitching clothes for the baby. She sang old songs while she sewed, hoping to create a bubble of love in a world that didn't want her. Until one day, everything collapsed. $150 had disappeared from the house. And once again, all eyes turned to her. The apartment was silent, almost cold. Linda walked barefoot across the marble floor, her hands resting on her 8-month pregnant belly. She looked different, more swollen, more tired, but still beautiful. The sparkle in her eyes had been replaced by a shadow. Her steps were slow, almost sorrowful, as if every room in the house now served as a reminder that love, sometimes, also betrays. Ottavio barely showed up. When he did, he stayed only briefly. Always on the phone, always impatient. Linda tried to talk, but he cut her off with short phrases. "I can't now, love. We'll talk about it later. You're too sensitive. It wasn't a big deal. You're overreacting." The nights were the worst. Linda lay down alone, listening to the sound of his car arriving at dawn, the scent of another woman clinging to the collar of a shirt. But she didn't want to believe it. She swallowed the pain and prayed. Told herself it was just a phase. That everything would change once the baby arrived. One afternoon, Ramina showed up unannounced. As always, she brought shopping bags, a box of imported vitamins, and a concerned expression. "I came to see how my granddaughter is doing." Linda smiled awkwardly. "It's a boy, Donna Ramina. The doctor already confirmed." Her mother-in-law feigned surprise. "Oh, I thought you were more drawn to feminine things. But all right, as long as it's healthy, right?" During the visit, Ramina wandered through the house, inspecting everything. She opened cupboards, commented on the decor, criticized the smell of the food. "You're still cooking? With that belly? Why haven't you hired a real cook? That's not healthy for the baby." Linda tried to stay calm. But she knew everything was a way of saying, "You're not good enough." That night, Ottavio came home later than usual. He looked irritated. Some money disappeared from the office drawer. "I left $150 there yesterday. Did you touch it?" Linda was stunned. "Me? No, of course not. I didn't even know there was money there. It's just the two of us with the key." "And your mother?" "She was here today," she said without malice, just trying to recall. Ottavio frowned. "Are you saying my mother stole it?" "No. I just thought maybe she took it for something. I would never touch what's yours, Ottavio. Never." He took a deep breath and looked away. "I'm not accusing anyone. I just want to understand what happened." But the doubt had already been planted, and Ramina, as always, knew exactly how to use it. The next morning, she called her son early. "You need to protect what's yours, Ottavio. That girl came from very little. $100 to her is like a month's salary. Be careful. Don't fool yourself into thinking love blinds all instincts. She may have started out good, but comfort changes people." Ottavio didn't respond. But the seed was growing. The doubt was eating away at him. In the following days, Linda began to notice strange things. One of the house staff wouldn't look her in the eye anymore. A cabinet where she kept her belongings was found rummaged through. Ramina left passive-aggressive notes around the house. "Order is everything. Trust is for the few." The tension turned to silence, and the silence turned into accusation. Until one ordinary morning, 2 police officers knocked at the door. Linda was still in her nightgown. She had just eaten a banana and was setting aside baby clothes for the hospital bag. She smiled, confused, when she saw the uniforms. "Good afternoon. Do you need any help?" "We're here to escort you to the police station, ma'am. You're being investigated in connection with the disappearance of money from the residence. There's an official report filed under your name." She didn't understand. "What do you mean? There must be some mistake. I live here. I'm his wife." Ottavio came down the stairs slowly. He was dressed, ready, holding an envelope in his hand. I just want everything to be resolved. If you didn't do anything, then you have nothing to worry about, right?" Linda looked at him like she was seeing a stranger. "You did this to me? You called the police." His silence hurt more than any slap. And it was in that moment that Linda felt the world stop. She thought of her child. She thought of her mother. She thought of all the effort she had made to fit into a world that was never hers. And she understood that love, when it comes with distrust, can be more cruel than declared hatred. The seat of the patrol car was hard and rough. The seat belt pressed tightly against Linda's belly, and her breathing came in short bursts, broken by sobs. The officers avoided looking at her. They were uncomfortable too. It was obvious they didn't believe what was happening, but there was protocol to follow. To the system, Linda was just another name on a form. Outside, a few neighbors from the upscale community watched in silence. One of them even tried to approach, but was stopped by a security guard. And Ottavio? He didn't even show up at the door. He stayed inside silent, watching from the window, as if he were seeing a box being carried away. The gates of the Viano women's prison opened at 4:42 p.m. that Friday. Linda was trembling from head to toe. Her belly, already enormous, now felt even heavier. Every step was a challenge. She was searched, stripped, inspected. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in her soul. "Pregnant, huh?" asked one of the guards. "Should have thought about your baby before you stole, right?" Linda didn't answer. She bit her lip to hold back the tears. Not out of shame, but out of pride. She wouldn't give that place the satisfaction of her pain. She was placed in a small cell with 5 other women. The beds were made of cement, covered with thin, almost rotten mattresses. A broken fan turned slowly on the ceiling, mocking the stifling heat. The smell of mold and despair hung in every corner. Linda sat in the corner, her back against the wall, her hand on her belly. And there she stayed, 4 hours, without eating, without speaking, unable to think of anything beyond the question that echoed like a drumbeat. Why? Why did he do this? Why did her mother-in-law hate her so much? Why didn't anyone believe her? The other inmates respected her silence. One of them, older, simply offered a clean cloth to lay on the floor. Linda nodded a quiet thank you. In the middle of the night, the pain began. A sharp cramp in her lower belly. She groaned, tried to breathe deeply, woke the others. "Are you going into labor?" one of the women asked, concerned. "Not yet. It's just pain, it's just fear," Linda replied, her voice barely audible. The next day, a woman arrived at the prison carrying a clipboard and a firm but kind expression. It was Marta, a volunteer social worker. She visited the women's wing every week to monitor special cases, especially pregnant inmates. When she saw Linda, Marta paused. She read the file. Then read it again. What's an 8-month pregnant woman doing here over $150? Linda didn't know what to say. She lowered her eyes. "I didn't steal anything. I was accused by my husband." Marta said nothing. She sat beside her and waited. Little by little, Linda told her everything. From the resort, the relationship, the wedding, the mother-in-law, the changes, the missing money. She spoke in a low, slow voice, holding back tears like someone trying to hold back an avalanche. When she finished, Marta simply said, "We're going to fix this. But first you need to survive here." In the following days, Marta began visiting Linda regularly. She brought soap, wipes, and cream to relieve the swelling in her feet. She also brought books, and she listened. "Do you still love him?" she asked one late afternoon. Linda hesitated. "I don't know. I loved the man I thought he was. But this man who put me in here, I don't know him." "Then find out who you are without him. Your son is going to need all of you." Inside the cell, the other women began to protect Linda. They let her sleep in the spot with the most airflow. They shared their food. One of them braided her hair. Marta had asked them to care for her, and they did. But something inside Linda was starting to change. The sadness gave way to anger. Not destructive anger, but a quiet, steady revolt that rises when the soul decides it will no longer accept injustice. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to uncover truths that would change everything. And for the first time in weeks, Linda closed her eyes with one certainty in her heart. She was going to leave that place. But she would never be the same again. The following week, Marta returned to the prison with the same calm and steady posture. She carried a folder in one hand, 2 bottles of mineral water, and an expression more tense than usual. She asked to speak with Linda alone in the women's wing cafeteria. "I need to show you something," she said, carefully opening the folder. Inside, she pulled out 2 copies of a bank transfer document. The amount, $5,000. Signature, Linda M. Nzinga. Date, 3 days before the arrest. Bank, the same one where Otavio and his mother had joint accounts. Linda looked at the papers like someone facing a nightmare spelled out in full. "I never signed this. I don't even have a password for the banking app. Otavio handled everything. Even to buy butter, he would say I should ask him first." Marta had expected that answer. Something was off. Very off. She had seen many cases of abuse disguised as care. Many wealthy men used their wives' financial dependence as a leash. But this case had something even more rotten. "Do you authorize me to investigate these transactions?" "With your signature." Linda nodded without hesitation. Marta then told her that she had spoken with a former employee of Ramina's household, an elderly woman who had worked for Otavio's mother for over 15 years. The woman described Ramina as polite in public, but cruel behind closed doors. She said Ramina had already driven away at least 2 of her son's ex-girlfriends using blackmail and even threats. "She never thought you were enough. Because you're simple. Because you don't have a powerful last name or a wealthy family. Because you don't bow your head." Linda took a deep breath. She felt like a pawn in a filthy game. But now she was beginning to see the board. "She didn't just want to get me out of his life," Linda said, her voice stronger now. "She wanted to destroy me, and use my son to do it." Meanwhile, outside, Ramina kept scheming. She discreetly paid for favors from a court clerk who could delay Linda's hearing. She spoke to Otavio on the phone every day, warning that the media could tarnish the family name if this scandal went public. She convinced her son that keeping Linda in prison was better for everyone. "She's dangerous, Otavio. You're still young. You can still rebuild your life with someone at your level." Otavio, under pressure, withdrew. He no longer talked about the pregnancy. When asked about the child, he simply said, "We'll see what the future holds." But something inside him was also beginning to shift. He wasn't sleeping well anymore. He avoided mirrors. And when he looked at the empty crib Linda had bought weeks earlier, he felt a weight in his chest. It wasn't longing. It was guilt. In prison, Linda wrote in an old notebook one of the inmates had given her. She didn't know if it was a diary or just a way to keep her mind sane. But she wrote, "Today I decided I won't cry for them anymore. Not for Otavio, not for his mother. They have everything. But I have my son. And if I stay silent, he'll grow up thinking his mother accepted being called a thief without fighting back." Marta arrived the next day with more news. She discovered that the signature on the transfer had been scanned from an old rental contract, back when Linda lived in a backroom in Benfica. Ramina had access to those documents. "It's becoming clear that fraud was involved," Marta said, "and I will see this through to the end." Linda cried. But this time, it wasn't from pain. It was relief. For the first time since everything began, she felt that someone was on her side. Not out of pity, but out of justice. A few days later, while reading a motherhood book donated by an NGO, Linda received a folded note. It came from another cell. A woman had written, "I heard your story. I went through something similar. Don't give up. They want to see you broken, but this is the moment you have to rise." And that's what I want to tell you right now, listener. You, who are following this story with your heart aching for everything Linda is going through. Tell me, how many times have you trusted someone who later turned their back on you? How many times were you called weak, naive, a dreamer? Have you ever gone through an injustice that made you feel invisible? If you have, share it here in the comments. Let us carry your pain with you. And if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to the channel. Here, the stories aren't just for entertainment. They're here to remind you how strong you are, how much you deserve to be loved, respected, and heard. Because just like Linda, you may fall, but you can also rise. And this story is far from over. The late afternoon light streamed through the mirrored glass of the corporate tower, where Ottavio worked. Marta walked into the reception area with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where she's going, but carried in her chest an indignation that pulsed like a warning. She wore a dark blue cotton tunic, her hair wrapped in a traditional scarf, and held the folder with Linda's evidence in both hands, like someone carrying a flag. The security guard tried to stop her. She showed the document. "I have a scheduled appointment. I'm a social worker. It's about his wife's arrest." On the 12th floor, Ottavio waited with his hands in his pockets and a restless gaze. The office was large and modern, with a view of the city. But there was no peace inside, no firmness in his posture. Ottavio looked like a boy who knew he was about to be scolded. "I don't know how you managed to get this meeting," he said, trying to sound assertive. "But since you're here, go ahead." Marta didn't answer right away. She opened the folder slowly, pulled out the documents, placed them on the desk. One by one. Forged signature. Suspicious transfer. A transaction date that doesn't match Linda's routine. Evidence that your mother had access to the original contract where the signature was copied from. Do you need more? Ottavio looked at the papers, his face turning pale. This could be a bank error. Or a setup. Marta stared him down. "And you're right in the middle of it. If you keep pretending not to see it, you're complicit." He rubbed his face and sat down. Silence. "I didn't want this," he murmured. "I just wanted to understand what happened with the money, the pressure, my mother. Your wife is 8 months pregnant. She sleeps in a cell with 5 other women. She's being called a thief by people who don't even know her name. And all because you chose to listen to a woman who never accepted the daughter-in-law you chose." Ottavio stayed quiet. For the first time, he lowered his head. "I loved Linda," he said quietly. "I still do." "Then prove it. Because love without action doesn't save anyone." Meanwhile, Ramina was at home, surrounded by fresh flowers, watching television with the volume low. She received a call from the courthouse. A judicial appeal had been denied. Marta had succeeded in advancing the fraud complaint. Her name would appear in the case file. "This is outrageous," she shouted into the phone. "I am Ramina de Silva Lemos. My family has a legacy in this country. What do you mean, investigation? You're being investigated for involvement in a fraudulent act. You'll need to appear for questioning," the clerk replied coldly. Ramina hung up with trembling hands. For the first time, she felt the control slipping away. She picked up the phone and called Ottavio. "Son, they're trying to destroy our reputation. That social worker, that Marta, she's dragging our name through the mud. You have to listen to me. There's still time to get that woman out of your life." But Ottavio didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the empty crib in the guest room. Linda had assembled it herself, piece by piece. Every detail, the white sheets with yellow embroidery, the handmade cloth teddy bear, the tiny pillow with the name Samuel stitched into the corner. "Mom, I have to go." And he hung up. In the cell, Linda felt the baby moving more strongly. She could already tell when they were just kicks, or when it was a response to her emotional state. And that day, he was restless. Maybe he could feel that something was changing. Marta arrived at the end of the day. "We have another piece of evidence. A saved message from your mother-in-law's former employee. In it, Ramina clearly says, 'That girl needs to disappear from my son's life before that bastard is born.'" Linda closed her eyes. She didn't cry. She just took a deep breath. "So now it's official, isn't it? She didn't just want to push me away. She wanted to erase my existence. And you're not going to let that happen. We're going to fight." Linda took Marta's hand. "But I don't want revenge. I just want to walk out of here with my son in my arms, free and clean." That night, as the rain hit the zinc roof of the prison, Linda wrote once more in her notebook. "Today, I felt that my name will be cleared, not by magic, but because someone believed me. I will never again stay silent out of fear. And if one day my son asks me how I fought, I want to be able to look him in the eyes and say, with courage, 'And now I speak to you, the one listening.' How many times have you doubted yourself, because of what others said. How many times have you been accused, judged, pointed at, silenced? Linda is just one name among millions, but she could be the mirror of your story too. Tell me, have you ever had to prove your innocence when everyone had already judged you? This story is just beginning. If this touched your heart, subscribe to the channel now. Here, we give voice to pain and turn suffering into strength. The air in Ramina's living room was heavy. The windows were open, but no breeze seemed to enter. Ottavio stood in the middle of the room, his hands trembling, his eyes fixed on his mother, who was arranging flower bouquets as if nothing were happening. "Mom, we need to talk." Ramina didn't even look up. "Go ahead." "I know what you did. I have the messages, the proof of the fraud, the bank transactions, the copy of Linda's signature." She stopped, let go of the flowers, looked directly at her son. "Are you accusing me?" "I'm asking why." Ramina walked slowly toward him. She placed her hands on his shoulders, just like she did when he was a child. "Do you know how much it costs to build a name like ours? Do you know how hard I fought to raise you without ever needing help from anyone? And now you are going to throw it all away over some little girl who came from the mud. She's my wife. She's pregnant. And you threw her in jail, Mom." She put herself there. She didn't know her place. Came in here with that innocent face, but she always wanted more. You were blind. I just showed you the truth. Ottavio stepped back. It was like looking at a cruel version of the woman who had raised him. "I loved you," he said, eyes full of tears. "But what you did, there's no coming back from that." Ramina sneered. "Love? A son's love is fragile. One day, you'll thank me." "Never speak of her in front of me again," Ottavio said, leaving the room with clenched fists. Across the city, at the municipal courthouse, Marta was helping Linda prepare for the hearing. She wore a simple brown tunic, offered by one of the prison volunteers. Her hair was braided, her belly sat lower, sign that the baby was near. Despite her tired face, there was dignity in every movement. As she entered the courtroom, she looked around. She saw the judge, saw Marta, saw the public defender representing her. But she didn't see Ottavio, nor Ramina. What she did see was someone unexpected. Rosa, the former maid from Ramina's house, sitting with her hands in her lap. Marta whispered in Linda's ear. She agreed to testify. The hearing began. Linda's lawyer was assertive, presenting the evidence. Marta also spoke. She showed documents, dates, bank records. It was a clear case of a setup, but the atmosphere was tense. On the opposing side, the family's lawyer tried everything, discrediting the witnesses, diverting the focus, claiming there was no clear evidence of malicious intent. That's when Rosa asked to speak. "I worked for Ottavio's mother for 11 years. I saw everything. I saw when she received Linda's documents. I saw when she asked her son-in-law to scan the signatures to take care of some paperwork. She always said that girl wasn't worthy of her son, and that she'd do whatever it took to get her out of Ottavio's life. She said she would make it look like theft, so he'd finally open his eyes." The courtroom fell silent. The judge called for order. Ramina, who had been watching from a reserved room, stood up in fury, demanding to speak. "That woman is a liar. She was fired for stealing." Rosa didn't flinch. "And even so, it was you who paid me to make the receipts disappear. Should I say how much?" Ramina turned red. The judge again called for silence. He scheduled the continuation of the hearing for the following week and required all witnesses to remain available to the court. Linda's request for provisional release would be evaluated within 48 hours. On her way out, Linda held her belly, feeling the baby move strongly. Marta gently supported her. "The worst is over," the social worker said. "Not yet," Linda replied softly. "The worst will be having to look him in the eyes when I get out and not feel any love at all." When Ottavio heard about Rosa's testimony, he went to the baby's room. He touched the little pillow embroidered with the name. For the first time, he cried like a child. A cry that mixed guilt, regret, and fear of having destroyed everything. And you, who are listening to this story, Have you ever had to confront someone you loved because they hurt you more deeply than any enemy ever could? 2 days after the hearing, the silence of the prison courtyard was broken by a voice calling from the bars of the cell. Linda Nzinga, you've been released. She stood up slowly. She didn't cry. She simply placed her feet firmly on the ground. It didn't feel like leaving prison. It felt like being born again. Marta was waiting for her at the gate, holding a clean dress and a simple pair of sandals. Linda dressed in silence, with the help of one of the guards. She didn't look back. She just walked toward freedom with slow but steady steps, like someone who knows nothing will ever be the same again. Outside, the social worker smiled. You're free, Linda. No, not yet. I've only left the cell. I'll only be free when I can look into my son's eyes without shame. At the courthouse entrance, a local TV crew was waiting. The case had begun to attract attention on social media. The video of Rosa's testimony, the former maid, was already circulating in WhatsApp groups. The hashtag Justice for Linda appeared on dozens of profiles. Linda kept her head held high. She didn't speak to the press. She quietly entered Marta's car and was taken to a temporary shelter run by an NGO that supports women in vulnerable situations. There, she found a small room with a bed, a donated crib, and a cracked mirror. For the first time in weeks, she slept in a bed alone. And she cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. It was pain slowly leaving her body. Across the city, Otavio was facing chaos. The news of the setup had hit like a bomb. Business partners began to question him. One investor demanded an explanation. A meeting was canceled. Even his secretary avoided eye contact. Ramina denied all responsibility. This is jealousy. People trying to destroy our family's name. But the family name was already on the front pages. Millionaire falsely accuses pregnant wife and faces judicial investigation. Businessman's wife unjustly imprisoned by mother-in-law. Former maid reveals everything. These were headlines he could no longer ignore. Otavio got in his car and drove to the shelter. He knocked on the door with flowers in hand. Marta answered. She doesn't want to see you, she said firmly. I just want to say, I'm sorry. Forgiveness is something you ask before leaving someone on the ground. It's too late for flowers now. He insisted. And Marta, after speaking with Linda, allowed a brief conversation outside, with supervision present. Linda appeared in a simple yellow dress, her hair down, her face thinner, but her eyes more alive than ever. Otavio started to speak, but she raised her hand. No, I'll speak first. He fell silent. You imprisoned me with your words before you sent the police. You took away my right to be a mother in peace. You treated me like garbage. And why? Because your mother told you it was the right thing to do. I was wrong, he whispered, his voice choked. Wrong? You nearly destroyed my life, Otavio. My son almost came into this world with his mother's name in the news as a criminal. That's not a mistake. That's cowardice. I still love you, he said with difficulty. Linda looked him in the eyes. I loved you. But what you did killed everything. No love survives humiliation. He reached out to touch her. She stepped back. Take care of your conscience. Because I'll take care of my son. She turned and went inside. Otavio stood on the sidewalk, flowers in hand, his eyes lost. In the following days, Marta helped Linda file a formal lawsuit for moral damages and forgery. The chances of winning were high. But Linda only wanted one thing, peace. She started sewing at the shelter. Using donated fabrics, she made baby hats, maternity bags, embroidered cloths. Soon, a volunteer posted about it on Instagram, and the orders started to come in. You should start a brand, Marta said. I want to start a new life, Linda replied. The brand is just part of it. Ramina received a subpoena to testify at the police station. She was caught yelling, accusing everyone of persecution. But no one listened anymore. The name she tried so hard to protect was now stained by her own hands. And now I ask you, the one listening to this story, do you believe every mistake deserves forgiveness? Have you ever been hurt by someone who said they loved you and had to decide whether to forgive or move on? The night arrived quietly, but with it came the contractions. It was the 9th month. Linda was sewing a baby cloth, sitting on a plastic chair at the shelter, when she felt a sharp tightening in her belly. Then another and another. "It's time," said Marta with a calm smile. They went together to the nearest public maternity hospital. The trip was peaceful. Linda held the social worker's hand like she was holding a sister's. During labor, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just breathed deeply, her thoughts racing between the pain. "He's coming. And he's going to see me strong. He'll know that his mother made it." At 3:28 a.m., Samuel was born. Strong, with his eyes wide open, as if already suspicious of the world. Linda held him in her arms and cried for the first time in weeks. But it was a new kind of cry. Light. Full of life. She kissed his forehead and promised, "You'll never see your mother lower her head for anything or anyone." At the shelter, a small hammock was set up next to her bed for the baby. Marta brought a donated crib. The other mothers helped with diapers, clothes, and even a traditional herbal bath to soothe the newborn. Linda breastfed in silence, and in between, kept sewing. Her corner became a small improvised workshop. With donated threads and colorful fabrics, she made caps, embroidered diapers, and African cloth dolls. The shelter's Instagram page posted pictures of her work, and within a few weeks, Linda could no longer keep up with the orders. "This is turning into a real business," said one of the volunteers. "No," Linda replied, smiling. "This is what saved me." Marta helped organize an online fundraiser to open an official workshop. The goal was simple: to build a space with her own sewing machine and hire other women who had also experienced trauma. In less than 2 weeks, the goal was met. Linda chose the name Restart. Ramina, now officially named in a lawsuit for ideological falsehood and harassment, had to testify at the police station. The footage of her arrival circulated through Luanda's social media groups. People criticized her in the streets. The reputation she had spent her life building was now crumbling. The last name she had worked so hard to protect was the one now attached to scandal. Otavio, removed from the leadership of his own company under pressure from investors, tried reaching out again. He sent a handwritten letter. He apologized. But Linda didn't reply. She kept the letter in a drawer, not out of resentment, but because sometimes silence is the most honest response. One Saturday morning, while hanging freshly sewn cloths to dry in the sun, Linda heard a voice behind her. "They're beautiful. Do you make them all by hand?" She turned and saw a man around 40, with a short beard, simple clothes, and a baby in his arms. "My daughter was born 2 weeks ago. I saw your work online. I came to pick up some caps." She smiled. "I made some with very light fabric, perfect for newborns." He sat in one of the patio chairs while she handed him the package. They chatted for a few minutes. She learned he was a history teacher at a nearby school. A widower, raising his daughter alone. "It's hard being both mother and father," he said. "I'm still learning to be just a mother, but I'm learning well," she replied with a smile. He thanked her, paid for the items, and said goodbye respectfully. That was it. No flirting. No promises. But after he left, Linda stood for a moment looking at the gate. It wasn't desire. It was a seed of possibility. For the first time, she felt that maybe, one day, she could love again. But for now, the only love that mattered was sleeping in the crib beside her. The Sambizanga neighborhood was celebrating. Not because of music or fireworks, but because of something far rarer, living hope. On the dirt road, women gathered around a hand-painted gate, where a cloth banner read, "Rikamakar Workshop, clothing made with dignity." Linda was putting on the final touches. In her arms was Samuel, now 2 months old, strong and healthy. The workshop was small, 2 simple rooms, with yellow walls, wooden shelves, African fabrics hanging like flags, and a handmade sign with an embroidered phrase. "Those who sow through pain create with soul." It was the official opening. Marta was there, smiling with emotion. So were the other women from the shelter. Some held babies in their arms, others were already sewing beside Linda, hired to help. The message was clear. No woman who had suffered violence or abandonment would leave that place without a fresh start. Earlier that day, the judge had closed the case. Ramina accepted a judicial agreement to avoid a formal conviction, but she had to pay compensation to Linda and issue a public apology. Her interview was cold, rehearsed, emotionless. She stared at the camera and read a text prepared by her lawyers. The public saw it, but did not forget. Her name would carry that story forever. Ottavio, now distant from the company and isolated from his friends, didn't show up. Not at the courthouse. Not at the workshop. He sent one last letter. I understand I've lost you. But if you allow me, I would like to meet my son someday. Linda didn't answer right away. She placed the letter in a drawer like she did with the previous one. But this time, she looked at Samuel, gently touched his face, and said, "One day, if you want, I'll tell you everything. But it'll be in the right time. Our time, not his." At the end of the opening event, while offering hibiscus juice in simple, colorful cups, someone walked in smiling. The widowed teacher. "I told you I'd come back," he said, holding a new baby cap. "My daughter only sleeps with this color. And I slept better too." Linda smiled this time with ease. "Then you'll get one more as a gift." Sewn with faith. He looked at Samuel, gently touched the baby's little foot, and said goodbye softly. It wasn't romance. It was respect. And for Linda, that already meant a lot. That night, after everyone had left, Linda sat in the rocking chair Marta had brought from the countryside. Samuel slept in her arms. The sky was clear. The air smelled of soap, and pans clanged in the neighbor's kitchen. She thought about everything she had lived through. She didn't want a perfect ending. She wanted a real life. With good days and bad ones. With tears and laughter. With steady ground, even when the heart wavered. She thought about what she would say if one day she could share her story with other women. Don't let them break you. But if they do, gather your pieces with care. And keep going. Because you're the one who decides what to sow with the pain you felt. She smiled and fell asleep with her child in her arms. And now, dear listener, it's your turn. You who followed this story to the end, who felt Linda's pain, cried with her, breathed relief when she walked out of that cell, and smiled when she found herself again. You, too, have the right to a new beginning. You don't need to return to the place that hurt you. You don't need to forgive someone who never asked for forgiveness with their heart. But you can absolutely begin again with dignity, with courage, and with truth. Leave a comment below. Have you ever had a difficult new beginning that became your freedom? And if this story moved you, subscribe to the channel now. Here, you won't hear fairy tales. You'll hear real lives of women just like you. Women who hurt but never gave up. Thank you for following this story to the very end. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.